All right, we are live. So this is episode 20 of the Blue Crocus Experience, and I'm here live with Shiloh, who's going to tell us a bit about himself. I'm meeting him for the first time here on this podcast, and basically I was recommended to get in touch with Shiloh by someone who will actually have been on the podcast by the time this one gets released, but Cam Roberts has been an avid fan of the podcast, and he actually hopped on with me here not too long ago. And he recommended me definitely getting in touch with you, Shiloh, to hear what you're up to, because a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are young business owners or business owners who are looking to get to know other business owners that are crushing it. And so, I'm always looking for people who are crushing it or who are actively, moving from not crushing it to crushing it, right? So,
Absolutely.
Maybe you can just jump in and tell us a bit about yourself. I listened to your episode with Tom Reber there a few weeks ago when Cam had first told me about you. But for the listeners, give us a snapshot of what you do, where you're from, and I'm going to steal Tom's line and just let everybody know that you're 16, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So everybody who's listening, this guy's crushing it, and you can learn some things and. Yeah, tell us your side of the story, and then we can kind of dive into it. I'm just going to close the show.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm 16. I run a hardscape landscape construction company in Boulder, Colorado. We're a little out of Denver, and what we specialize in is pavers, retaining walls, outdoor living spaces, that kind of stuff. And yeah, we really started out the company mowing lawns, and then kind of started doing more landscaping, and then cut out the lawns and just did the hardscape. So that's where we're at. We have about 12 employees in the field and a few office staff, and things are going good.
That's awesome. So tell us how this got started, because I was shocked when I heard your age, and I know that a lot of people are, and I'm sure you hear that all the time, right? So you're probably tired of people saying that, but I think it is important to talk about it, because there's a lot of people who are twice, 3 times your age. They have had a dream for a while. They want to get out there and do something, but it's scary, right? It's scary to think about doing something different. It's scary to jump out there without necessarily having all the answers. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got into this. My parents have their own business. It's nothing to do with construction or anything. They have like a massage business, but I've always kind of had the business mindset and wanted to do things on my own. So that definitely had some influence on it. But how we kind of started in the landscape field was just really mowing lawns around the neighborhood. We just wanted to make some extra money on the side, and started mowing, at first 5 lawns a week, and then we got up to 30, 40 lawns a week. And that's how this all started. We didn't really realize the potential where we could take the business at that time. We just really wanted to, do something, be productive, and we were just mowing lawns. So eventually we started phasing out of that and more into the landscape, rock installs, some pavers, that kind of stuff. And it went from there. I think the biggest thing that I started out was just mindset on making sure I'm always thinking big. I was writing my goals down every day on what I want to do, and always having big goals, and then listening to the right mentors that would be able to, I could shorten the time that it takes to grow a business by doing what they have already done. And so a few things there that were important. There was the mindset, the mentors, and just learning and diving all into it.
Awesome. And you've been doing that. This is your 3rd full year of doing this?
Yes.
Yeah, very cool.
Yep.
So what, I love the writing down big goals and writing it down daily. That's something I'm working to do, because that's something my mentors have told me to do is, write down your goals, set them much higher than you think you can achieve right now. But for you, what kind of gave you those goals? Because I know when I was, 14, 15, I didn't have goals that are kind of running to the size that you're looking to achieve. So talk to me about, was it kind of your parents' influence, or do you just sit down and be like, hey, I think that, I see YouTubers doing this. I see people doing what kind of influenced your goals?
when we first started, I got in some groups that had, companies that were doing a couple million in sales, and these people who I got in there and I just learned what they had. And that's where I learned this. I mean, I've studied Grant Cardone and that kind of stuff, where I learned to write down the goals and then to think bigger. So, I mean, I'd start, and, it wouldn't, not necessarily my parents' influence or anything. It'd just be me and talking to them and thinking big and wanting to do something big. But even when I started, I mean, my goals were, I'd set goals, but they'd always just keep growing. I'd set them, like, I remember, end of last year, start of last year, we I set a goal for revenue and for employees and that kind of stuff. And then, we went 4 or 5 times that much by the end of the year. So, I was setting big goals, but I realized I wasn't setting big enough. So now I'm just shooting higher, and it pulls me forward. I'm thinking about that every day, motivates me and pushes me to do what I want to do.
I love that. And maybe just quickly drop what you guys did make last year, because it's some big inspiration for setting goals. Because if you line things up right, it's possible to make pretty well any goal you set, right?
Yeah. So at the start of 2019, we didn't have any employees. We were just kind of starting to get into hardscapes. It was me and I have a twin brother, and we run this together. And after listening and we went to some Grant Cardone events and that kind of stuff. And our big goal for the year was $250,000 in revenue. And at the end of 2019, we ended up doing 1.1 million.
That's amazing. That's so good, man. I love that. It gives me chill. I remember when I first listened to your episode, I was like, what? Kevin told me that you're up to some big stuff. And when I actually heard it, I was like, that's incredible. And, ultimately for those listening, it's not about the money. And you would agree, I'm sure. It's not about the money. It's about setting goals that you want to achieve. Maybe for someone who's listening, that goal is just to be able to spend more time with the family. Maybe it's
personal goals can be big. I mean,
yeah.
I set personal goals. I set business goals. I set weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, 5-year plans. That I'm always kind of thinking ahead.
Yeah. No, exactly. And so you also mentioned mentors and groups, and I know that there's some people here who are listening and are in like the hardscapes industry, but really for any industry. I mean, Grant Cardone applies to anybody who's working to smash out some goals in business. But can you maybe drop a few of the mentors or groups or both that have influenced you?
Yeah. I started out, and right away I got into Tigran Gert's program. He has a YouTube channel, and he's in the landscape industry, and he has a private group, a fee that I pay to be in there. And yep. There's, 250 people in this group that are all similar mindsets and all pushing ahead and all in the same industry, and bounce ideas off each other and have, weekly mastermind meetings and live videos and that kind of stuff. So what was
the name again?
It's called the GOAT Gang.
Okay, the GOAT Gang.
GOAT Gang.
Okay. And what was it Tigran Gertz?
Tigran Gertz, yeah.
Okay, I'm just writing down notes as well here. Awesome. So you jumped into that, and then.
Yeah. So I jumped into that, and I've been in that for a while, and then, he kind of through that introduced me to Grant Cardone, and I just went full into that. I mean, I've read all his books. I've listened to him on Audible. I got into his sales training platforms and just studied that every single morning. And, the stuff he's doing is crazy, and where he came from and transformation like that. So it's motivating. So that was a good one. I went to some of the in-person events and that kind of stuff.
That'll get you fired up for sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't make it to the last event, but I bought the replay. So I got to watch all the kind of the big speakers and stuff.
Yep. And you know what? A little more recently that's really helped me a lot is called Contractor Sales Academy.
Okay.
And this can be for any contractors, but it's basically a new way of selling, on taking things to pre-qualify customers over the phone, going through budgets, going through the whole process, charging consultation fees, that kind of stuff that 99% of contractors aren't doing. That, it makes it's like a total game changer. Doing that. Everything starts with sales, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, if you can sell a bunch of work, it'll solve a lot of your other problems. You'll figure out how to do stuff. I've always committed first and figured out the rest later on sales, on just selling really hard, and then I'll figure out how to hire more employees, how to buy the equipment, that kind of stuff.
So by the time you're selling, you obviously know your costs and everything in the project, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
A program for that. It's not like a group or mentor, but a program to learning your numbers that's helped me is, if you're in the landscape field, it's called LMN, Landscape Management Network. And that really opened my mind on what I need to charge, exactly my gross profit margins, and knowing my numbers.
That's awesome. And one thing that also jumped out as you were just talking was the consultation fee. So do you charge for the quoting process?
Yeah. So how my sales process works is, if a lead comes in, we'll reach out to them over the phone initially, and I have someone in the office do that and get some basic information from them. And if it's a lead worth pursuing, then I'll get on a call with them. They'll text me photos before of the space, and I'll go through why they're buying, the pleasure of it, the motive, what they want, all the details, you know, any other decision makers. And then usually by the end of that call, I can share a rough investment of what they're looking for the project. So that's kind of my free estimate. And you know, if they want to pursue to an on-site meeting or a design consultation, that kind of stuff, those do have fees.
Because a lot of like you're talking high-end jobs here, and so you're going to do some sort of a mock-up for them and take some time to make it look good too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's you know, that's time that if you put in an hour or two of work, then you're not just losing that into the wind if they go with someone else.
My sales process most of last year was I'd get a call in, I'd run out to them right away, and, you know, out to their property and talk about them, go home, write an estimate, you know, send out the estimate. Half of them I wouldn't hear back on. A couple of them I'd close, and it was just a big time waster, and it wasn't efficient, it wasn't effective. Now I could turn that all around, do it from my office, do it from over the phone, but also have higher closing ratios, reach more people, do more sales.
And you kind of knock off the people that are just, you know, either tire kicking or definitely aren't within your price range, and kind of even before you spend much time on it.
Yep.
I love that. I think that's, you know, I think any industry, you know, there's a lot of, I've interviewed a lot of people in the asphalt, paving, and tree world. And I think that, you know, both of those could benefit from that sort of thing for sure.
Yeah. So if they want to dive into it, the Contractor Sales Academy is, you know, they have their whole process about it.
Yeah. And who puts that on, just to refresh me?
There's it's kind of a couple guys, but Tom Reber is part of it. And then Steve Schinholzer is kind of the other, the kind of co-owner it.
Yeah, I thought Tom was involved in that. I'm actually hoping to get Tom on the podcast here and drop some gold nuggets for people.
Yeah.
As well sometime. So I'll bug him and I'll say, hey, I had Shiloh on. He told me that you got to pop on.
Absolutely.
So I mean, the big burning question for me is, how do you balance all of this? And, you know, for me, it's, you know, my family life, but, you know, school life. What does school look like for you for the past couple of years?
Yeah. I do right now. I do all online school.
Okay.
So it's really not much. But, you know, when we first started this, we're doing public school, and we kind of got in the program where we can do half at public school, half at home, kind of thing. So we could free up some of our time. And then, you know, when spring hit, we were too busy. We just went all online for that next fall. So, you know, for the past year, it's just all been online, and it's really a couple hours a week to get a diploma, and then you know, I'm learning way more than I would be in school doing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the school of life and actually applying all this stuff is so much more valuable than a lot of the stuff that's taught. How is it working with your twin? I guess you guys, you know, don't hate each other because you're still surviving.
Yeah. It's been great. We've always had a good relationship. So he, you know, his role in the company right now is project managing and running the crews, running the projects, ordering materials, communicating with customers. And if I didn't have that, like, I definitely have to hire someone to do that. But, you know, having us same mindset and him being able to control the projects, and it's just been able to help us grow a lot. So it's basically a second me, you know. Imagine just being able to we can do a lot more that way.
I got to find a twin soon. So what, you know, obviously your sales processing is incredibly important, but when you're pitching your services to a customer, what is it that makes you stand out from the competition?
Everything we do has a process and system and broken down, and the whole team knows it. But you know, from the start, the biggest thing contractors mess up on is communication, you know, scheduling, and just being clear with everything. And like, if someone reaches out to us, someone's getting back to them within a few hours, no matter what. If someone wants an estimate, you know, that happens the same day. If a design is within a few days, scheduling is always on point. You know, they can log in and see a customer portal on what got done that day, daily logs, and their schedule, when they're on schedule for. If anything changes, they can, you know, they view all their invoices, their estimates, everything to do. So we've always just tried to be most professional, best communicators, over communicate, and quick response, and that kind of stuff that will people notice that. And, you know, it's a big, it can separate us from the competition pretty quickly.
That's amazing. Yeah, talk to me a bit about what you use for people to log into, because that, you know, that kind of piques my interest, and I'm sure a lot of people, you know, as a customer of different contractors as well, you know, sometimes you're kind of like, well, when are they coming? What's going on? What did they get done today? Does it look, you know, why does it look like that?
Yep. It's called Builder Trend, what I use.
Okay.
And a software that handles almost everything in my business. It goes through the sales process. So, you know, all my leads are in there, who I need to call, what stage they're in, all the information about them, completed activity.
The whole CRM and everything built into it.
Yeah. And then once you sell the job, it's converted into a project. So you do the scheduling on there, and the customers can see when they're on the schedule, if you allow them to. For more of the crews and that kind of stuff, my foremans have to-dos on this. So it's basically an app. They clock in through this as well. And then underneath, they can see to-dos for the day. So, you know, my foremans, they do a daily huddle with the crew, and they have certain things they go through, and then a lunchtime review meeting, and then end of day stuff. I can make to-do lists and checklists for anyone on my team, which they can see right there. And then the next thing is daily logs. So each day my foremans are required to, you know, create a daily log, which is basically take a few photos and write out what got done this day, so we can always go back and customers can see that. It can also have unlimited file storage. So all of our photos, time-lapse videos, everything to do with the project is in one central location for anyone to, you know, if we're doing marketing or we need to go back and look at something, whatever, it's all right there. And then it also does our estimates. So they can send an estimate, get signatures. It does our invoices. So they can see all that, payments. They can log in, see how much they owe, that kind of stuff. It can do change orders. If we have a change order, you know, it's basically an estimate, like a sub-estimate associated to the estimate, and they can sign off on that, make sure that's all clear. Yep. And then, you know, they have something called selections, which I have all my materials in there, and I can select things where they can look at photos and different materials on what goes where, that kind of stuff, and select the kind of rock they're using, that kind of stuff.
That's so amazing. That's huge.
It's basically this central software that I found that, you know, it helps us run everything.
Now, how much does that run you per year or per month or whatever the price?
It's they have two packages. One's $200 a month and one's $350 a month.
That seems really affordable for what you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And do you have an affiliate link or anything, or do they just go directly to Builder Trend? Or
I probably have one. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, if anybody listening is looking to get into it, you know, get in touch with Shiloh. He can. I imagine you'd probably be willing to walk people through some of the benefits and stuff.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, that sounds like a killer software for sure. So I guess that kind of segues roughly into, you know, how much time are you spending on sales calls, and how much time are you spending, you know, running things day to day, and how much time are you spending looking forward and growing the business, and seeing in a year what are we going to be doing, how many people do we need to have, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one of the most things. The biggest thing I'm working on right now is I have some team members. I have a designer. I have my brother, and we need to, I'm setting everything up where I can push more onto them and delegate more, because I'm bogged down. I'm doing the sales. I'm working on the business. I'm growing things, and it's gonna, you're gonna have to put in long hours. You're gonna have to work hard to get to where you want to go. But I'd say where the ideal point to where I want to get it is going to be sales calls, probably half my time, and then the rest is all just focusing directly onto the business, on growing systems, on working on things, on personal development, that kind of stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. That that seems like a good balance, and it seems like you're pretty passionate about the sales stuff. So
yeah,
probably want to keep your toes in that pool for sure. Awesome. Is there, one of the things I get people to do and kind of put them on the spot sometimes is, what's one thing or two things that you would recommend anybody in any service business focus on, or something you've learned along the way that has changed things for you?
Yeah. Number one is know your numbers. And number two is develop systems. Going into number one is knowing, I can pull up my software, or my spreadsheets and that kind of stuff anytime. I can see exactly how much I'm making on each job. I can see my gross profit margins, my net profit margins, the LMN helps with seeing I'm doing this job, how many man hours it's going to take compared to how many man hours it's actually taking in real life, exactly how many materials, how much overhead I'm going to recover, how much I need to charge. Once I started diving into that was a game changer, because before I was doing all my estimates off square footage. I'd ask people what they're charging. I'd try to figure it out. And I just, 500 square foot patio, that's that much money. But I had no idea of how much money I was actually making. We're doing, we were doing a lot of revenue, and the bank account wasn't growing as much as I wanted it to. So everything, once I kind of got a handle on that and put in the work to develop the numbers, see exactly how much I need to charge, how much we're actually making, and revenue per hour, that kind of stuff, that was a big game changer.
For sure. Yeah, because I think in a lot of the things that square footage comes into play, I know line striping, seal coating, asphalt, everybody's like, oh, what do you charge per square foot? And it's like, it's just a race to the bottom of the barrel at that point, right? It's whoever can give the lowest square foot. Whereas I like to look at that as a poverty mindset. If you're just trying to beat out the next guy, you're not focused on treating your customers the absolute best you can or giving them the most value. So I think that's I love that you brought that up.
Yep. And the second thing I said was the systems, which is everything in my company has a certain way we do it, and everyone knows that. So, we everything from the initial call and this going through the sales process, who does what, when, we send videos, and then the job onboarding packet. It's like a super smooth process to hand that over to my brother, and he makes a video introducing himself. He sets up the form, and he organizes all the materials, and that all has a process on what we follow on how to do the sales, how to run a project efficiently, how to job costs. We have for how to hire, we have it to how to do payroll. We have all the little things in our company that comes together. And I basically outlined how we do each of those things, and it just made everything clear, and it holds everyone accountable. So creating procedures on the ways you do things, because you as the owner can have everything in your head, but until you can start passing that on to other people, if you start developing these systems early, writing things down, then that's going to be a lot easier when you start hiring office staff and that kind of stuff.
For sure. And then, you're not the bottleneck at that point, because, if you're the only one that's holding the information in your head, you're going to screw it up, or other people are going to screw it up because they don't know what you want to do. And you won't be able to scale. I love that. All right. Last couple of questions, because I know you're busy, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but what if there was one thing you could change? What would be the one thing you would change if you could start back at the beginning? And then just to kind of wrap up, what would be kind of your parting thought for contractors and service business owners alike?
Yeah.
It could be two things or three things if it's hard.
I'd say definitely the numbers part was important. I wish I would have done that the first month I got into business, and I would be a lot more ahead. I'd have more money in the bank account, that kind of stuff. So I think that's really important. And then, I've always just taken the leaps and gone forward and pushed forward. But I just recommend anyone who's listening to always be thinking bigger and pushing ahead, and, just taking the leaps, taking the risk. And I'm a little different situation where I don't have a family to feed. I don't have, some of those other personal expenses, but it's been big just going forward and pushing harder and having the big goals and that kind of stuff. So, I definitely keep doing that. But I think, those are kind of the two biggest things: just knowing my numbers, charging more, and then always making sure I have, a large mindset, never slowing down, always just keeping pushing forward.
I love that. I love the energy, and I love the fact that we were able to connect here, Shiloh. I think there's actually some really good nuggets in here. I learned a few things actually, and I know that people will pick up a couple things. So I really appreciate you coming on here. Really excited we connected, and what I'll do is I'll end off the recording here, and then we can chat briefly in the off mic, and then we can go on our days and finish crushing it.
Okay.
Awesome. Really appreciate it.